everybody to our presentation. Today we are presenting a realization of usability test, a social media marketing software development case. And we are Christina Eberhardt and Anna Fentel from University of Innsbruck, and the presentation is for first international workshop on social media analysis for intelligent environments at the 16th International Conference on Intelligent Environment. So we give an overview on our work. There is introduction, use case, research question, methods, results, and recommendations and conclusions. Generally, the work is about usability and how to access usability in social media systems. And well, with usability, like for example in this comic, it's not always solutions, of course. Well, usability has always remained a challenge, even when you design a cup, but also when you design some kind of software. And in particular, we talk about social media software, which is, or social media management software, which is even a kind of more dynamic, maybe than a typical software product. So usability is, of course, a very big concern, and how to integrate this usability process into software development and practice and involve the user is very, very important and deserves investigation. So first, what is the usability? Well, with usability, of course, people don't really notice usability. It's not something you can touch, but when it's absent, of course, there is a frustration, dislike, and eventually rejection of the final product, which is, of course, not very good. Usability is extent to which a system, product, service can be used by specified users to achieve specialized goals with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in a specified context of use. This is how the standard for usability defines this. Yeah, so we have many actually complex things: effectiveness, efficiency, satisfaction in a specific context. Then further, as we talk about particularly social media management, we have one of the newer, say, P of marketing is participation. In addition to product price and so on, yeah, the non-typical things which are important for marketing. Participation is clearly on the web is the fifth P, or specific important point in marketing online, and social media exactly addresses this issue in terms that with Web 2.0 applications, which took off, say, in the last dozen of years, in the last decade, we have basically applications which involve the users heavily, and we deal with a lot of user-generated content, and users are also participants of the whole communication chain of such software. So for the case, we took a specific social media management tool. It has been the main product of OnLim. OnLim is a spin-out company of our institute, Semantic Technology Institute, Department Computer Science, University of Innsbruck. It's 5 years old, and generally it's active in fields delivering online marketing, particularly also on social media, but also recently more with chatbots and technology. It's technology based on knowledge graphs, so the information is structured, have very dynamic structures, very easily extendable with knowledge graph technology or semantic technology. And in particular, we are talking here about a product which involved support of social networks. So if you look up our papers, in principle, we had already quite a few things published. on what this tool is doing, but generally it supports communication. It automates communication various social networks, similar to Buffer, for example, what it has been doing. And for example, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Sync, YouTube, Flickr, and it has different features like you can schedule a post, you can post it on some specific channel or on all channels. You can create different posts, you have content recommendation and so on. So it's has been quite extensive social media management toolkit. So the research question is here: to which extent can usability tests detect user experience issues and consequently improvements for the use case of a social media management tool? And generally, it's a very competitive landscape, as we all know. We don't know much about previous user experience, unfortunately, right? Because it's not what people share or developments of such tools share broadly. We know that there probably are some issues with the previous user interface versions, and we also know something about how developers view it. So people, like on the development side, they see, there is, for example, some feature not used, or something is going wrong, or users report bugs directly. And generally, we want to know what is the difference, say, when you take the usability test and when you take a normal software development process. Well, to which extent, say, one is complementing each other or better than each other, yeah. So what we did a usability lab in the sense that there has been a summative usability study, and there have been a number of people who participated in on-site usability lab, so in 16 people, and an online usability study with 11 people. They were filmed, and they were asked, like in a normal or standard usability studies, to perform typical tasks. For example, to register to the tool, to connect to social media account, to walk through this page guide for post creation, select the RSS feed and add the Facebook page, select two suggested tools, publish one, save the other one to the draft selection, edit the draft article saved previously, and schedule the post for the next day. Create post including image and schedule the post, change calendar view and reschedule one of the posts. So this is the kind of tasks people were getting, and it was observed how well or poor they managed to perform them, yeah. So time of task, whether they were successful or not. Also the users, they said themselves, was it difficult or easy to do the task, and there have been further questions. And then the video material was analyzed. So this was the results, basically. Well, for these 6 tasks, there have been, we'll say, time when people completed the tasks. This is the average times on tasks in seconds. And the second table is task success as perceived to the user versus the actual level of success. Yeah, so you see some of the, not all the tasks are exactly the same. So the first task obviously required, for example, more time, and task number 3 was more difficult, yeah, actually, but people thought they successfully completed it. So then the results were analyzed, and there was a comparison between actually what developers found anyway with the, say, practices like observing how people use the tool, how the development plan goes on, yeah, because if they work on some features, they maybe fix them anyway, even without analyzing what the users do. And this was a compared the basically development setup with the usability planning, with the usability test outcomes and feedback. And of course, also usability tests produced some additional recommendations, for example, that some new posts should be always visible, or users also gave feedback. For example, they wanted a mobile version, time zone selection, so many details. You get actually quite overwhelmed when you ask users, because they tend to ask many features in this kind of cases. So there have been some recommendations for this specific tool, but also for general social media management tools. And as a result, actually, we have seen that, well, if you go back, for example, on this slide, yeah, and see on the second table, comparison to new user interface, we have seen that only 40% of actually found issues were fixed or addressed in the user interface if the usability feedback was not provided. And this, well, one system problem would be fixed. So system problem is the kind of problem which occurs because the system doesn't function correctly. For example, there is an error when you try to do some task. And 5 operational problems would be fixed. And operational problems are typically that, for example, users persistently don't understand some features or misuse it, or fail to perform a task even though it's possible to do it technically. So, so basically, well, from this feedback, we see that only 40% of problems would be fixed, which is basically brings us to the conclusions that it's even though it's difficult and such experiments is not necessarily cheap to run, yeah, like was here done with 27 participants, and analysis, set it up, analysis, it takes quite an effort, but on the other hand, it's also very essential to get such feedback on time that the changes are implemented, because, well, otherwise only 40% maybe of problems get resolved in the new version without such feedback. And this, of course, puts the product at risk when it comes to the market spread and user acceptance. So basically, it comes that the usability tests are valuable, and this is, of course, in principle also known in theory, but for this dynamic setup with such tools as, for example, this one on social media management, it's very important also to come up with such processes to make such usability tests integrated into software development process in a more efficient manner than, say, classical usability studies can be done, yeah, because in this case, well, it's quite a big effort, and also feedback may come even later than necessary with running such efforts. So basically, this is the conclusions we have for this part. So this was in principle related on software development and usability of very dynamically evolving tools like social media management systems. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us directly. Also read the paper, and particularly contact me on Twitter at AlphaVerda, and look up the developments of OnLim, which is doing chatbot a lot, and some of our newer projects, for example, WordLift next new generation, which is addressing social media search engine optimization and using knowledge graphs for it. So also improved web presence